Hi, Nancy.
Welcome to episode 89 of the Front Porch Book Club.
The Front Porch Book Club is a podcast that meets twice a month.
We like to dig deep into the relationship between characters and the worlds they live in.
Grab your book and iced tea and join us on the front porch.
So, Lenny, you've been doing more acting.
Okay, this time there really was some acting involved.
Okay, I want to hear all about it. I got a text message, but I don't know anything else about what it was all about. And
Oh, I got close-ups and everything.
wow.
Yeah. I was supposed to gasp.
Ooh.
And then I was actually cued in. And then I had to pick up my phone and pretend to talk on it.
Nice.
The first time I screwed it up. And then he came over for the other thing. He said, maybe I didn't make myself clear. Nancy, I don't do a very good job at this.
Well, that's exciting.
But yes, yeah, it was fun.
I'm inspired by your retirement gig. In other exciting news, you're going to have a headshot taken while I'm out visiting next
You're
week.
coming to visit. I'm so excited.
Yes.
It's going to be a beautiful weekend. We're going to have beautiful weather. We're going to do our photos.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get hair and makeup done. We have outfits to get together, staging of my front porch. We might be finding things from other people's porches in my neighborhood and taking those. Porch pirates.
Well, speaking of looking forward to something, I'm very excited about our book this month, and I'm looking forward to talking with you about it. So I've never read Ann Patchett before, which is hard to believe because she is a literary legend. This month, we're going to discuss her latest book, Tom Lake. Ann Patchett is the author of 9 novels. She's written 5 books of nonfiction, and she's also published 3 children's books. She's been the recipient of numerous awards and fellowships, and it's a long, long list, but just a few of them are the National Humanities Medal, the PEN/Faulkner Award, and a Guggenheim Fellowship. Her books have been New York Times bestsellers, and her work has been translated into more than 30 languages. She is one of our most revered and acclaimed literary talents working today.
Yeah, so this particular story is interesting because it takes place during COVID.
Yes.
And I didn't realize that right at the beginning of the book. I'm like, what's going on here? But
Yeah.
it's because it's taking place during COVID. And our main character is a lady named Lara. She's the mom of 3 adult girls, and she's being pestered to tell them about her acting days and her relationship, which is romantic, with Peter Duke, who is now a well-known actor. Have you read any books that were set during the COVID pandemic?
No, I have not. This is really the first one. I've read 1 or 2 New Yorker stories, but this is the first full-length novel. And I know there have been a few that have been published, but honestly, I've been avoiding them because I kind of feel like, I lived through that COVID pandemic. I don't think I really need to be reading a book about it. But I will tell you, I really like this book. And I like the way that she captured what it was like to be holed up with your loved ones during this pandemic, and this awareness that while you feel entirely safe, like she and her daughters, they feel very safe. They are alone picking cherries. They do have some migrant workers, but they stay very far away because they want to stay safe too. So they're not interacting with people. So they feel very safe, but they are very aware that the rest of the world is really struggling. And that really resonated with me because I'll tell you, during COVID, it was great to have my son home from college. We have a nice big house. We have a big yard. We were building things. We took walks in the neighborhood that were completely safe. It was fine. And you feel kind of guilty when you watch the news and you see how it's so negatively impacting so many people and that people are dying. But I tell you, I also really liked how we go back and forth between the current time, the pandemic, and the past when Lara is a teenager and then young adult, and she's becoming a professional actress. Now, we've read some other books like this that skip around in time, and sometimes you really haven't liked it. I was wondering, were you able to follow the jumping around, and did you like that in this book?
Yes, more than I have in any of the other books that we have read.
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
find it confusing. I knew where we were. I knew what decade we were in. And I thought about a couple of things when I was after I got done reading this book. I think she must be a really good writer because
Well, she
I
is.
had no problem following this story at all. Not only do we have this current story that's working in the cherry farm, and the pandemic is a minor thing. Like, I didn't even know the pandemic was going on at the beginning. I thought, oh, they're all home for some reason and they're working on the cherries, and the workers that are there that just don't want to talk to the people. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't quite get what was going on. But you have some of the names are the same.
I loved how we met the daughters first and we didn't really think anything of their names. And then we start understanding who they were named after. And
Yeah.
I love that because that's exactly how so many people name their kids. That's like, oh, something, this name was important to them. This is a family name, whatever. And it was like, oh, wait, she was named after the role Emily in Our Town. Oh, she was named after her grandmother. I love discovering that.
I did too, but at first it wasn't discovering. I'm like, "Wait a minute, who is this?" But then I realized it. It was like, "Oh, wait a second, that's who that is," and I thought that was really clever,
Yeah.
and I was not confused by it. I thought this author I really liked because she wrote it and it didn't confuse me. So I did like that about this
Yeah.
book.
Good.
Those chronological jumping arounds never bothered you. You always find that to be creative, right?
Yeah, I think it is a creative way to move a story forward with some tension because you want to know how present day connects to past day. There's always kind of a mystery there, but it seems like it's a technique that's being used more and more and more. It's amazing, even the number of books we've read that use that technique.
I'm amazed too. The other dimension is the story of our town.
Yes.
So not only do you have the past, which mom is talking about to her adult daughters,
Hmm.
and then you've got the our town story.
Hmm.
And that's this other story that is thread through the current two stories that I was learning about as well, because I might be the only person in America that doesn't know our town.
You have never seen Our Town? You've never
I
read
have
Our
not.
Town?
I have not.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm trying to go, okay, wait, who's this person in the story and what's going on there? But again, I have to give credit to the author because as I'm learning about Emily as the lead in our town and her life, I'm also learning about the lady who plays Emily in our town and what happens to that character. And so there's really 3 stories going on here for me because
Mhm.
I did not know our town at all.
Does this make you want to see a production of Our Town?
I would go see a production of our town because I understand that people really like it and are moved by it.
Mhm.
Did you see our town? I would imagine.
Yeah, I've seen Our Town several times, and every time I see it, I cry. Every time I think, "Okay, I'm gonna go in, and I'm not going to sob," but I do sob. Partially, that's really good productions, I guess, that I've seen, but, Thornton Wilder is just a wonderful playwright, and the way he has written that play, I think, is very beautiful. Did you notice there's a postscript in the author's notes where Patchett writes, and I'm going to quote, I thank Thornton Wilder, who wrote the play that has been an enduring comfort, guide, and inspiration throughout my life. If this novel has a goal, it is to turn the reader back to our town and to all of Wilder's work. Therein lies the joy. Did you see that postscript?
No, I don't read that part of the book. read that?
It was after the end of the novel.
Oh, no, I don't read that.
Well, I thought it was beautiful, and I think it will turn people back to Wilder's work. Now, here you have never seen Our Town, and now maybe this has piqued your interest a little bit.
I would go see it. I mean, it sounded like a nice story.
Yeah,
So,
it's beautiful.
and I'd like to go to plays, so I would go see it.
So, this recounting of Laura's life to her daughters, I thought it was funny how they kept correcting her about the story of her life.
Oops.
They were so sure that they knew everything about their mom and dad that when she was telling them the actual real story, they really didn't believe her. And it was interesting to me because I think that they had filled in the blanks in ways that suited their idea of who she was rather than the true story of who she was.
They got the childhood version. Now she's able to go a little bit deeper into I didn't just love your father and get married and he was my first boyfriend and all of that. There was a life before you and there was a life before your dad.
I think growing up, they were definitely infatuated with this idea that their mom dated this famous actor, Peter Duke, and they wanted her to tell them the story. And my sense was she told them just the bare minimum, or maybe they were really only interested in the bare minimum from her perspective. It wasn't really clear to me. They did not know that their mother's name growing up was Laura, Laura, and they didn't know then that she changed it to Lara. So I thought some of that was very typical of kids who live in their own world and they see the world from their perspective, and they may not really be that curious about their parents. And certainly, as they were growing up, wouldn't have been the appropriate age for her to be telling them everything that she did now that they're adults. But I liked the way that they were drawn. What did you think of the three sisters?
Well, I love the three sisters. I love that they were all very different
Mhm.
and that their mom kind of parented them differently too. They each had their definitely their own strengths, their own goals, and what they thought were important.
Yeah.
And they weren't perfect little daughters either. And she saw them for who they were and she loved them despite themselves, which we hope we all do as moms.
Throughout the book, she insists Emily was the only role she could really play well. And the reason that she was so fantastic in that Hollywood movie is because the role was just like Emily.
Right.
But then other people throughout the book say she was an excellent actress. Her husband maintains she was an excellent actress. Sebastian, Peter's brother, says at the end of the book, and he's had a whole career in Hollywood, she was one of the best actresses he's ever known. So it's only Lara who insists that she was not a good actress. Did you buy that?
Yeah. Nancy, they only ever saw her in Our Town and that one movie that was just like Emily and required no acting.
I could understand that she didn't have the ability to play a very sexy, passionate woman in a tempestuous relationship. That wasn't in her wheelhouse, but that's not so unusual. Many actors are good at playing within a certain sphere of roles.
Mhm.
I think she underestimates her own ability by diminishing her acting skill.
Really?
Mhm.
And I took it at face value. She could play Emily, and then at one point she couldn't anymore because she was no longer Emily.
Mhm.
She had too many scars on her in life. She grew to maturity. She had some experience behind her, and she wasn't naive anymore.
Well, you also have to look young to play Emily because you have to be a convincing high school student.
Right.
So I thought she physically was aging out of the role.
Yeah, that's probably true too.
Yeah. Okay, so there is a sort of twist in the middle of the novel where we finally understand who Laura's husband is and also the girl's father, Joe. You texted me, I believe, at this point in the book where you're like, "Wait, Nelson. Wait, who's Joe? Oh, wait, Joe Nelson.
Yes, I did. I was in a moment of panic. What have I missed?
Did you see it coming?
Okay, I have to give it to Anne because she did that on purpose.
Absolutely.
And so I still don't have enough confidence in my own ability to read a book and to really think I know what's going on. But she tricked me up on purpose.
Yeah, she
So
did.
I had to go back through my Kindle. This is where I wish I had a paper book. I had to go back and go, wait, where, what? Let me read this earlier. What's going on here? Who's this Nelson? What's it? To realize, okay, she's pulling a fast one. Because I kept thinking one of these people's gonna be Joe.
Gotta be.
It's gotta be, but I didn't see that one coming.
Mm-mm.
No, did you see that one coming?
Nolan, I did not see that coming. And
Okay.
I was on the watch for it.
I was watching too.
It's like one of these people is Joe, and he's just in the background. They call him his last name.
That was mean.
And then all of a sudden, someone calls him Joe, and it's like, wait, what? And it's a new section in a chapter,
Yeah,
just slips in there. And you're like, wait, are we back in present day?
yeah,
Wait a second here. But I thought that was very
yeah.
cleverly done.
Very clever. Well, I'm glad to hear it wasn't just me. Did you go back and read and figure out, did I just slip up what's going on? Or did you know it?
I think I went back just a page. That was the one time I wasn't sure about the time. Were we in present day? Were we in the past? That I thought, is this our current day Joe? Or have we just discovered who Joe is?
Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about these sisters because you and I are sisters.
We are.
Did you have a favorite sister?
Oh, I think Nell was probably my favorite sister.
Oh, what did you like about Nell? She was the youngest.
Oh, that's probably it because I'm the youngest. I liked her way of looking at the world. Of the three daughters, she was the most impatient about COVID because here she was, a young actress in the prime of her breaking into the acting world as an ingenue, and she's stuck picking cherries in Michigan. And she was so desperate to hear her mother's story because her mother was living a life she could only dream of, and yet her mother didn't want it and ended up walking away from all of that. So I just thought that situation was so interesting to have a character who desperately wants what her mom walked away from and is grieving and jealous and angry, but also an incredibly sensitive and sweet person as well.
Yeah, she seems very nice. She also seemed to have a deeper insight than the other sisters
Yes.
had. She was able to put some pieces together quicker than other people were and
Mhm.
show some real insight into what was going on.
Definitely.
Yeah.
How about you? Did you have a favorite?
Oh, I was leaning towards Nell too. I
Oh,
thought, well, she's very insightful and she's able to pick up on things between the lines that the other sisters aren't. I did like her frustration at mom, this was all handed to you because it does kind of seem like it was handed to her pretty
definitely.
easy.
Yeah.
I mean, she played in a school play.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, she's at college and on an airplane. Like it doesn't really happen that way. Certainly not happen for Nell that way.
Right.
You know, it's hard career to get into.
Right.
So I really liked her. I liked Emily for her spunk
Yeah.
and that she was a difficult child to raise. I think that's good for parents to have one child that's difficult to raise. And that was definitely Emily.
Right.
And I think that's fun that Emily, who was a difficult child to raise and kind of angry, that she was also named after the protagonist in the book Our Town.
And she's the one who could not wait to get out of the farm, but she ends up actually being the one of the three sisters who has decided to remain on the farm and keep it
Yeah.
going.
And she's an interesting person because her romantic story is very different than her mom's.
Mhm.
So her mom gets into this hot and heavy, head over heels in love.
I mean, was it love or was it just lust?
Well, it's infatuation or something. You're head over heels over this guy.
Yeah.
and you call it what you want, but she's head over heels. And her daughter's story is very different in her relationship with the guy that she's going to get married and gets engaged to during COVID.
Right, because he's just the neighbor boy who has always been there. It feels like it's just a very slow building romance.
Well, yeah, he's the neighborhood kid and he grew up basically there. And he has a really good relationship with her dad and they talk shop.
Yeah. Yeah.
They talk farming and cherry picking and hogs and stuff and fix things.
So the twist I didn't see coming, and this is a spoiler alert, is that Peter is admitted to a mental hospital a year or 2 or 3 after their summer at Tom Lake, and he contacts Lara and asks her to come visit. They hook up, and that leads to an unwanted pregnancy and abortion. And Lara has never told Joe or the girls about this, and she withholds that information from them in this story. It really made me wonder why Lara ever even decided to tell them the story about her romance with Peter. It seems like she's been pretty hesitant to do so, and then she does, and then she doesn't tell them everything. And I wondered if you had any insights into why she decided to tell her story. For me, I always think that the two things that anyone wants from the people they love is to be known and to be accepted. And I wondered for Laura if this was a step for her to be known for who she was and then be accepted by her daughters. But what did you think about her deciding to tell this story?
Well, I think that's true of people. They want to be close to other people and they want people to love them just the way they are, faults and all. That's
Mhm,
what we all would like.
mhm.
I think she would have been happy to keep that story to
I
herself,
think so too, yeah.
but her daughters are in need of some entertainment. Like they are picking these cherries 12 hours a day after day after day, with little contact with anybody else because of the pandemic. So there's a lot of time
Mhm,
and she decides how much she wants to tell them.
right.
She doesn't tell them the sexual parts of her story.
Mhm,
That's private. She just tells them sort of the love story part.
mhm,
And they're happy to listen and find out about the G-rated version.
mhm.
So it didn't surprise me that she told them the story and she told them the parts that she wanted them to hear. And she should keep some of that stuff private. I don't
Right,
think that they would have benefited at all from knowing anything else.
right. She and Joe have what seems to be a good, close relationship. Did it surprise you that she had never told Joe about her abortion?
Hmm. See, I can go either way with that one, Nance.
Mhm.
What about you?
I could see why she didn't tell him.
Yeah. Yeah, I can go both ways with that. Like, yeah, I mean, in real life, that would be something maybe you would disclose. Hey, I have this experience, and this is what it means to me. And there might be a reason not to ever share that. I had this procedure done, and this is what happened. And
Yeah.
how much do you tell your current boyfriend or husband about your past? What is helpful and what isn't?
I think for her, part of it was the shame in what seemed like kind of a tawdry hookup in a mental hospital bathroom, and that she realized her life was not going in the direction she wanted it to go if that's what she was doing. And then I think the second thing is since Joe knew Peter and he had been at Tom Lake during that time when she was just head over heels with Peter, I think that just would have been one step too much about that relationship that he needed to know about.
Yeah, I think Joe identified that they were hooking up.
Oh,
They were
absolutely.
girlfriend, boyfriend.
Absolutely.
They were head over heel. Well, she was definitely, I think, head over heels.
Right.
Peter Duke kind of got the opinion that he liked hooking up and probably wasn't really in love. Just liked having her around
Right.
for summer fun because we had the lake and tennis and fun to do and a play and let's have a good time.
Yeah, she was a great playmate for him.
Now that we're talking about Peter Duke. and this relationship they had. There was some icky factors with that. You mentioned the insane asylum hookup.
Right.
That was sort of the yuckiest part of that relationship,
Right.
like the turning point, I think.
Right.
But from the moment they meet, there's some red flags there. She does start having sex with him almost immediately.
Mhm.
She starts smoking. He says, "Here, have a smoke." Who just picks up some cigarettes and starts smoking because the boyfriend says, "Start smoking because then we'll have something to do during break."
Right.
And then she starts drinking a lot
Mhm.
and getting drunk
Mhm.
because he wants her to.
Mhm.
So there's some character flaws. What did you think about this relationship? And when did you think, "Laura, what are you doing?"
Yeah, there were a lot of red flags even in some of the ways that he interacted with her and some of the things he said to her and about her. And it's clear that he really does see this as a summer fling and that she's a convenience to him. When she's no longer convenient, he's not interested. So anytime there's any bit of her not being interested in going along, then he starts drifting away emotionally from the relationship. And of course, the biggest betrayal is when she snaps her Achilles heel and can no longer be the leading lady in our town and the second play that they are producing at Tom Lake. She has to go to the hospital. I don't know, within a day or two, he's sleeping with the new leading lady.
Yeah, I think she's still in the hospital
Yeah,
when he's hooked up with her best
her
friend.
best friend that summer, right. But that also causes her to think about the time that she cheated on her best friend in high school with the boy who played George and how that must have felt.
I was glad that the author came back to that because I thought, "Oh my, she's showing no remorse or care for her best friend when she's doing this." And I love the tie-in later on where it was like an aha moment. Gosh, maybe that wasn't very nice of me.
Mhm.
Laura, you don't do that to your best friend. But she seemed oblivious to it.
You like a good romance. So far we've talked about a not so good romance between Peter and Lara. We've talked about the not so good romance between Lara and her first George in our town. How about the romance between Lara and Joe? Did you find that satisfying?
Well, it's really not to talk about.
No, it really isn't. It's almost an afterthought, isn't it?
Like, don't you think the girls want to know more about
Their dad.
how'd you end up with dad?
Yeah.
Okay, Peter Duke, I can understand. We see him on film. He's a good looking guy. The love of your life was Joe. If there could have been a longer book, I would have enjoyed that part of it. That's the part that I kind of felt like, let's get into Joe. Like, how did that happen? When did you start having feelings for George?
So, do you buy that her calling is marrying Joe and owning a cherry farm?
I think they all liked the memory of what that day meant to them.
Mhm.
The sense of that farm and that family and that healthy lifestyle was grounding to her. And the fact that she was kind of spiraling out of control a little bit at Tom Lake, I think the thought of that she really, really liked. How she fell in love with Joe, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand that part of her connection, except for that I felt like the lifestyle that he provided her was very attractive to her and healthy for her.
Yeah, I do think that the cherry farm was a sort of nirvana for her, this wholesome environment. She wasn't particularly close to her parents or brothers, but she was close to her grandmother, the seamstress. And I think for her, the idea of this wholesome environment, she probably had somewhat idealized ideas of what owning a cherry farm would be like. It was a lot of hard work, it sounds like, in reality. But I think she really liked the lifestyle. I think Joe, if anything, we see him as an incredibly solid and stable person. He is the opposite of emotional. He's just steady as they come. And I think that that probably attracts her, but it is not a sort of passionate relationship that she had with Peter Duke. And maybe that's the point. That's not what she needed. She did spiral out of control. She lost herself in that kind of a relationship. And so this relationship with Joe is exactly what she's looking for, because she can find out maybe who she really is in that kind of a relationship, where she loses herself in the other kind of relationship.
She loses herself, and there's got to be some kind of anxiety there, because you're right. He pulls away from her and she clings even closer, and she compromises herself, and she loses a little bit of herself. She found a guy that accepted her the way she was. I think that helps to relax you a little bit and helps you to accept yourself and kind of fall back into place a bit. But I wish we could have heard a little bit more. The pandemic was very long, Nancy, and there was another chapter or two that could have been had.
We could have, because Joe kind of dips in and out of the story as he is coming along with the tractor and they're emptying lugs. But we also don't really know, why did he give up directing? It was something that he loved. He also loved the cherry farm. We definitely get that. But when he goes to the farm full time, he's not even directing as a side gig, it doesn't seem. It's like he has completely given up that world, and his daughters can't even imagine him as a director. So that feels like a loss. I would like to know more about Joe. What's his story?
Yeah, I would like to know more about Joe too. I think there's an interesting parallel with Emily. She is closest to her dad than any of the other girls. There's something solid about him. Like, Emily is kind of emotional and angry, and she's got all of this upsettedness in her, maybe kind of like her mom was. Not that her mom was angry, but sort of that, I need to find myself, I'm emotionally unstable, and I need that solid person. And Emily gets that from her dad too, where her mom just doesn't seem to know how to make that connection. She just kind of exhausts her.
So, speaking of people loving the farm, again, spoiler alert, Peter wants to be buried on the farm. He dies. Sebastian, his brother, brings his ashes and asks Lara if Duke can be buried there. And surprisingly, when Peter is talking about the farm to Sebastian, he doesn't even remember that Lara was there. I mean, talk about someone who really is not very...
Just a summer fling.
Not very caring, right, of other people. But she ends up agreeing to allow him to be buried there. And then she supposes Sebastian will probably also want to be buried there with his brother. What did you think about that whole ending with Peter being buried there and Lara agreeing to it?
I'm not surprised that she would agree to it. I think it would have been more appropriate to ask Joe what he thought, because I don't know that I would want my wife's lover to be buried
in my family plot.
I'm not sure. I could see why he wanted to be buried there. There's a kind of a nod to that when he lays down by the graves as a young man for a long time and doesn't want to leave, and he's lying on his back.
Right.
It's kind of different and odd that he's doing that.
They all think it's odd. And he's smoking. He's laying there smoking.
There's something a little different about him.
Yeah.
They accept him just the way he is. So it doesn't surprise me that he wants to be buried there. And I'm like, oh yeah, this was his happy place. That's sad. You have one day in your life that made you happy. So he kind of has a sad life.
So does this book make you want to read other Ann Patchett novels?
You know, sometimes I say yes after we've read these books, and I have never fallen through, Nancy. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'd like to read more books by that author. But the thing is with this podcast is you keep asking me to read yet another book.
That is true.
So I can't ever go back and get any of those other books. However, I did like her writing style. I thought she was very easy to read, which I appreciate, and very easy to follow. And I liked the storyline. I liked the family. I liked the three daughters. They were all interesting and well developed. there really was nothing that I didn't like about this story. I definitely am going to go see Our Town at some point when I see that. I think that would be fun to see that.
Yeah.
But I can't read any more than I'm reading now. It's just not possible.
Fair enough.
So, Nancy, we're going to keep talking about Tom Lake with our expert.
And we'll probably hear a lot about Our Town from her as well. Well, everyone, thanks for listening. Our website is frontporchbookclub.com.
Our episodes come out twice a month on the first and third Wednesday of each month.
See you next time, Linny.
I'm going to see you in a couple days.
That's right.
I'll pick you up, man.
Good. Pick me up at the airport.
See you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.